There have been some important developments that will probably drive stock prices higher in the coming days that occurred after the market closed today, April 22nd, 2025. The market is moving higher after the close based on Trump appearing to endorse the Treasury Secretary's comments made earlier today that the trade war with China will de-escalate in the very near future. That was music to the stock investors' ears. The S&P 500 closed up 129.56 points today, or 2.51%, based on the Treasury Secretary's comments, and is up close to 100 points in after-hours trading as of about 6:50 p.m. Central Standard Time this evening, uh, based on what investors are viewing as a softening of Trump's trade stance with China, based on his comments that he made in response to several questions that news reporters asked him in the Oval Office. I did not interpret his comments as taken in the context in the same manner. So I may be selling some shares tomorrow. I had trouble avoiding selling shares today. I'm now more inclined to do so if we see another robust rally. I am participating in the 4-month Treasury bill auction tomorrow, Wednesday, April 22nd. And I bought some dividend stocks today that were down in early morning trading. But mostly I bought today corporate bonds, focusing on higher quality ones that had yields to maturity of over 5% and coupons at 5% or higher. I am having to go out to 2033 or to 2035 to secure that kind of yield from high quality corporate bonds, and I'm okay with that because I can hold anything that I buy to maturity. Trump also claimed that he had no intention of firing Powell after saying a few days ago that Powell needed to be terminated as soon as possible. I suspect that the Treasury Secretary has had a long conversation with Trump and has managed to convince him that his rants about the Fed chairman are causing problems in the stock, bond, and currency markets, and he needed to restrain himself. Scott Bessent said trade negotiations with China had not yet started, and he expected a tough slog. Notwithstanding those assertions, Trump continues to claim that the negotiations will be successful and further mentioned that the 145% tariff will come down but will not fall to zero. So it's sort of in the air as to when it's coming down and by how much. Those comments were made by him in the context of Trump insisting that the high tariffs will force China to come to an agreement satisfactory to Trump in order to bring down the massively high tariffs. Trump made this statement, quote, ultimately they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal with the United States. And we want them involved, but they have to, and other countries have to make a deal. And if they don't make a deal, we'll set the deal, end of quote. I interpreted his comments about the tariff not remaining at 145% and coming down to 0%, and his Bessent's comments that there would be de-escalation soon in the context of everything that he said during the question and answer session late this afternoon. I interpret his comments to mean that if China makes a major concession satisfactory to Trump, that is a precondition to the U.S. lowering the current tariffs, and a failure to do so would mean their continuation. In other words, no change. but just a softer way of saying what the precondition will be for him to lower the tariff rates. So I did not interpret it as a softening of his position, and some talking heads are saying that he's blinked and he's retreated and he's backtracked and so on. As I said, I don't see it that way yet. So what I believe from what he said is not going to determine how stock investors react in the next several days, and so a rally will probably continue tomorrow and possibly for several days after that. But I have to ask myself whether we're being manipulated with rosy predictions about a successful outcome in the China trade negotiation in order to stop the carnage in stocks and the rise in treasury yields and the fall in the U.S. dollar. And those claims and that rosy prediction about the future with the China trade negotiation may or may not have any evidentiary support at all. And of course, it's hard to say when Bessent is saying that the negotiations haven't even started and will be a tough slog. So there's not a certain answer to whether we're being manipulated or there is some evidence underlying these rosy predictions that make them truthful when made today. There's not a certain answer to that question, but if tariffs remain at current levels for several weeks, a couple months or more, and there's no indication from China that it is willing to do what Trump wants, and any claims by Bessent then that things are about to turn satisfactory for everybody and the problems are about to be solved are going to fall on deaf ears. He risked permanently losing all credibility if it turns out there was no justification for saying what he said today about the China trade negotiations and the de-escalation in the very near future. When it happens, and it's confirmed by China that there is a de-escalation and they're very close to a trade agreement, then I will believe it. I'm not inclined to believe Trump or Bessent that things are about to become much better and that trade negotiations with China will be so successful that the tariffs rates will come down substantially in the very near future.